We have a special episode for you today because this is more of a discussion. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to blogging. So I brought my friend Jen Osterhout, who is an old house enthusiast and has a blog at everydayoldhouse.com to talk to us about blogging. So hi, Jen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to take off my shoes because to me, this has to be like a conversation.
Okay.
I need to talk to you about this blogging situation. Okay. First of all, I need to say I have never actually grown a blog. So people should not be listening to me for blogging advice. But I do know enough by having studied it a little bit. So I asked you to come and talk blogging to me because you have actually like made money with your blog.
Surprisingly,
Right?
yes.
So that's a lot more than a lot of people can say.
Mhm.
So why don't you tell everybody what your blog is about and what you do?
Sure. So my blog is Everyday Old House, and its mission is fairly simple. It's to help homeowners, especially ones who have older houses, kind of appreciate their home. And I do that in two ways: to entertain and educate. I feel like there's so many home bloggers out there who have like these perfect blogs and they do perfect projects. I do not. My house is very real. It is a mess. I attempt to do some home improvement projects and they go wrong. They go sideways. My job, I feel, is to talk about those mistakes and then figure out how I fixed it, whether it was trying to restore our deck or even have a hobby of trying to restore old furniture. I totally mess something up and try to figure out how to fix it. And maybe it comes out good and sometimes it doesn't. But so I have a lot of lessons learned. And I feel like that resonates with a lot of people. I get a lot of emails from folks who are like, oh man, I messed this up. And then I found your blog and you messed it up too. And then and then you told me kind of like how to fix it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So, and we live right outside of Boston where we both have old houses. Like, I don't think that anybody knows really when my house was built. It's like circa 1900,
Yes, mine too,
right?
actually. So I have gone into researching the history of old houses, and you can find different dates for the same house
Yeah.
when you look things up.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
So, like, and oh my God, if I told you the horror stories that I have found in my house, I was so mad at this. So, like, when we moved into our house, this is something I could have never even thought of looking, but now is the only thing I will look at if I ever look at another house again. That the load bearing walls in my house, the ones that are in the first floor, the second floor, like they were not aligned with the main beam of the house in the basement. They were resting on the joists.
Right.
So for anybody who doesn't know what joists and main beam are, basically I had load-bearing walls that were not being properly supported and the entire house was sinking
Yes.
at that point. And it did not get caught during inspection and it was such an easy thing to check.
Yes.
You go to the
Yeah.
first floor, you measure the distance from the wall to the wall, and then go downstairs to the basement to measure the distance between the wall and the beam.
Yeah.
If the distance is not the same,
Yeah.
you kind of have a problem.
Yeah. And you don't know until you're in it. Like
Yeah.
when you start kind of peeling away the layers or doing some renovations or even cosmetics, and you find out. That's like, for example, my husband, he had owned an old house before he met me. And when we were looking at houses, he kept kind of pressing on all the walls. I'm like, what are you doing? And the realtor's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I've had that old plaster walls. He's like, in the last house I bought, they were completely soft. He had to take them all down and rebuild and put drywall. And he was like, that was not a fun project.
Yeah.
So he had that experience and he was like, you don't know until you're in it.
Right.
So yeah, old houses they're a challenge. I mean, they're gorgeous, but they could be a challenge.
So you love to do these home improvement projects that you are not a general contractor, that you're just literally teaching yourself how to do. Why start a blog? Why was that a thing for you?
It was actually for me, for organization. So what happened was so I have 3 children. And when we had the twins, I knew that we were not going to be doing anything on the house. But I had learned just some skills on, painting and waterproofing the basement that I didn't want to forget because I knew once the twins were older, we would get back into it. So I had a notebook. I wrote things in a notebook. I lost the notebook. So I decided I need to do something online. So I did something on WordPress real quickly, kind of my notes. And it got out there. And then people started emailing me and saying, oh, yeah, that happened to me. Or, hey, I really enjoyed that. And I was like, well, wait a minute. People are finding me. I was like, maybe I should take the next step up. And that's why I did it. Was I said, you know what? This is kind of fun. Maybe I could monetize it in the future. Who knows? Like, but I was just so, I was just thinking about this was for me. Like, this was
Yeah.
for me so that 10 years from now, I could be like, okay, now how do I do this again? And it would be there because the notebook is gone. So, yeah, that's how I started.
I feel like I did the same thing with a couple of different ideas.
Hmm.
One of them was for cooking. I'm not a cook. I forget about it. But I have very, very picky eaters at home. So I started a blog and I drew a picture of my husband's face, which is actually really easy to draw. It's just a face with glasses and like hair parted like to the side. And I just said, cooking for picky eaters. But then I would get frustrated because I kind of expected people to find it just organically and for it to just grow and like make me a millionaire just because I'm sharing these things. So it looks like you had the experience where it was like, yeah, people were actually searching for these things and finding answers for it. So what before we continue, I did want to tell everybody. So Jen's daughter goes to school with my son and they've been in activities together and they just like love each other to death, that's why I'm so excited to be talking to you because I've always liked you and I'm like, can we just like get to know each other better?
This is awesome.
So I asked Jen to bring 3 things that people need to know about blogging and I came up with my own list. So everybody needs to know that because Jen is the expert blogger here and I'm just like the in theory blogger. I'm actually a little scared that the things that I'm sharing with you guys, Jen is going to be like, yes, but not quite. So please feel free to totally debunk what I think people should know about blogging, okay? Because you actually know about this. So before we go though, before we start with this list, you told me a story that I'm like, I feel like everybody needs to know that. I am in the digital world and I did not know this. Can you tell everybody what happened with your traffic? If you remember
Yes.
telling me that story, what happened? What was it? What were things like before this happened, and what were things like after?
Okay. So for me, for blogging, I mean, I found that there were certain aspects of the marketing that I enjoyed or I was good at. And one of it was SEO, Google search engine optimization. I got good at finding long tail keywords that I could get on the first page of Google search results. It was just something that I learned. It was something that I had a knack for. So I focused on that and I focused on Pinterest. Pinterest is known for a lot of DIY home niches. So I found that I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed creating the puzzle of the picture and the SEO in the Pinterest captions and descriptions. I did not do social media. I'm not a social media person. I'm trying. I did not do a lot of email marketing. So because of that, my blog grew through Google and Pinterest. And last September, Google always has algorithm updates. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're large. Last year, they had one called the Helpful Content Update at HCU. And it significantly hit a lot of lifestyle, recipe, and travel bloggers. And there's a lot of debate about why and how and what have you. But the bottom line is there was a significant number of bloggers who lost a significant traffic. I lost about 80 to 90%, which was not uncommon through Google search results. So there has been kind of this process that I personally have been trying to figure out. What I did first was just kind of stepped away because the experts, I follow other bloggers, I follow experts in SEO, podcasters, and it was kind of like everyone was on hold. So I just kind of waited, said, let's just see where the chips fall. So I waited until about January. Nobody seemed to be recovering, as I could see from the Facebook groups that I'm involved in, and it's been hard. I think people are trying to learn to diversify. I mean, it was a great lesson for me. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. While I may be really good at SEO and Pinterest, it's time to learn about other ways to monetize. I monetize mainly through ads, I should say that. So I have ads and some affiliate links. So basically, for ads, you have to drive traffic, get those page views, and I was good at that. So through Google. So what I'm doing this spring is really trying to figure out what's kind of the next step. For some bloggers, they have just shut down. For some bloggers, they are learning other skills like I am with regards to social media, maybe trying some digital products, trying to get on Etsy. We had talked about Etsy. Just kind of feeling my way, or even pivoting and maybe doing something completely different with the online skills that I've learned. So that's been going on kind of with regards to a lot of these types of with our types of bloggers.
And that is going to make it like harder for people to get their blogs out there because you had mentioned that now if you search for something, you're going to see a lot of forums. You're going to see like a Reddit
Yes.
conversation threads
Yes.
rather than
Yeah.
independent bloggers who are putting out this information.
Yes, they have flipped that with regards to Reddit is kind of taken over with regards to rankings over bloggers from what I can tell, as well as some AI. I mean, now you can see
Mhm.
Google's kind of doing that, and that's a whole other topic with regards to where they're getting that AI. Sometimes there's some bloggers who are saying, "Hey, that's from my page," but
Right.
it's all speculation. It's all kind of up in the air, and people are just trying to figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
I had a great little business. I hope I still have a great little business. I just have to pivot and find another way to develop it, market it, and get out there. But I'm still helping people. This past week, I got an email from somebody, and it warmed my heart because it's so disheartening. Like, you're just like, my gosh, like I've lost like 80% of my traffic. And you get an email from this woman in Maine who said, I was trying to figure out about this brass hardware, which ended up not being brass, and I wanted to clean it. And I found your blog where you also thought you had brass hardware, and it wasn't brass. And so if I'd cleaned it a certain way, I would have ruined it. She's like, you taught me to test it to make sure that it's actually brass plated versus brass. She goes, and I cleaned it. She goes, I just felt like I had a friend who was like describing to me how to do this. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, you get those emails once in a while, it just warms your heart. Like she's like, it was like someone talking to me,
Yeah.
and versus some of the other websites.
Yeah.
So that keeps me going.
Right.
Yeah.
So if there are people out there who want to start a blog, I want to start with our list. So I'm going
Mhm.
to start with mine. I'm just going to go one and then you go
Okay.
another one and then we'll go like that. So again, like I feel like I need to preface this by this is what I know in theory about it. And then you can tell me like if that's what it is
Mhm.
in practice. But for blogging, it's a long game. Is you do have to create content and
Mhm.
put a lot of content out there and consistently. Like you're not gonna have $1 million blog based on one blog post or five.
Mhm.
So I feel like if there's one thing that people need to know is that if you're going to become a blogger, you really need to think about what kind of content do I need to be creating with what frequency, what length of content should I be doing, right? And how often am I going to put it out there? Because if you only do one blog post per week, then that's only 52
Mhm.
blog posts per year.
Mhm.
Is that enough, right? Because when you think of anything that you have found online, if I found your blog and I see this, I may want to check out, okay, what else does she have? There should be like links in there that take me to other posts that you have published, right? Something that
Yes.
keeps me learning more with you.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's actually spot on. That was my number one. Was
What?
pick a topic or a niche that you love, or know a lot about, because this is a long-term gain. Like, I may have been blogging since 2017, but I didn't make money for 2 years, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that much that first year. This is a topic that is going to keep you up at midnight when your kids are in sleep, and then you can write your blog post. You're willing to wake up at 4 a.m. to do that. So I really think that you have to think really long and hard about what's going to drive you for those first few years to get you going. And it either has to be something just you're just very passionate about, or something that you are an expert in, something that you know your stuff, you can make money off of it. So I think this is not something that you're just going to jump in one day. I think that there definitely needs to be some planning on not only your topic but your depth of topic, because a few years ago, some of the blogging experts were talking about, you talking about a wide range of categories. Like, you'd have blogs that were like, fashion, food, travel. And now it's kind of the opposite, where the experts are saying, maybe you really need to niche down, like something very specific. So not only do you have to figure out your topic, but you kind of have to figure out how broad or how narrow you want to be in that topic. And not saying down the road that you can't pivot and either, broaden or narrow. I admit that's one of the things I've been thinking about as well. Maybe I'm too broad. Maybe I need to narrow down a little bit. Where would I narrow? But that would be my first piece of advice. Like, this is long-term game. Like, you're in it. So
This
you're
actually
on it.
feels
You're
so
on
good. This actually
it.
feels so good. That the first thing I say, it's not like, well, let's set you straight. So why don't you go with the next one, since we just totally agreed on the first one? What would have been your next one?
My next one is actually related to kind of the blogging experts, is take everything with a grain of salt. So I've been kind of listening to a bunch of folks who are been doing it longer than I have, who do it full time, and it's very cyclical. In some ways, it's back in 2018, it was like I'd said, kind of those broad categories, and now they're like, oh, niche down. And I think considering I focus on the lifestyle, travel, recipe blogger world, and kind of follow those people after the HCU. The update hit last September. It was very interesting to hear kind of the experts kind of change kind of their tactics. So I think you have to
Wait,
listen, like
what have you been
listen.
doing? What have you been watching them do? Like, what are they trying?
Well, they're getting into niche sites. They're saying they're going more general. They're actually trying a variety of different niche sites and following them and almost doing like case studies to kind of help bloggers like us say, where they're seeing success, where they're not seeing success. From what I can see, it's kind of all over the place a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my word of advice is listen to them. But if your gut tells you to do something different, try it because it might work.
Yeah. Seems like everybody's just trying whatever they can right now.
Yeah,
Anyway.
there's a little bit of throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
There really is.
Oh wow! How come I hadn't even heard about this?
It's I think it was very specific to those areas.
Yeah.
Google did have an algorithm update about a month or two ago, and there was some recovery. Some people actually did bounce back. There are some people that's still kind of coming out. I haven't really dug into kind of the whys and the theories on why some people kind of were able to kind of bounce back on some traffic and others have kind of stayed where they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's I find it kind of fascinating. I love SEO. I love kind of tracking Google stats. I'm an engineer. My background's engineering, so I love numbers.
Yeah.
So trying to kind of put those numbers and make sense of them,
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
Well, I'm going to tell you my second one, which does get into SEO. So I did something a while ago. I was following somebody whose expertise is in growing audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I was part of her huge Facebook group. And she said, hey, we need to crowdsource some work. Because we have all of these blogs, because all they do is grow audiences. Like they pick a very specific niche, like crazy cat lady, like something like really, really specific that people love. And then they just create a whole bunch of content about it. They create blogs about it, totally faceless. This is not a personal brand. This is like, everybody loves crazy cat lady. It's like, this is a crazy cat lady blog, right? And so they crowdsourced it like, hey, we have all of these blogs, and because some of the rules of Google have changed, we need to update our SEO standards. So we are happy to to give you what the guidebook is for SEO, as long as you can help us update this content. So I signed up for that. We didn't get paid. It was just like, if you help us, we'll tell you what you're supposed to do. I'm like, that sounds great. So part of the stuff that they gave us was things that I had never even thought about. It was, yeah, it makes total sense. So my number 2 thing was, you gotta learn about SEO. Like, it's not enough to do blogs the way that I was doing them, which is like, I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about, and I know people are going to fall in love with me, and then I'll be a millionaire. Like, it doesn't work that way. SEO is an actual thing. So I'm going to tell you a few of the things that they made us do for the post. One of them was to use H2 tags, to use heading to sections. So what is that? If you're wondering, if you've never had a blog, you don't know what a heading to is when you're writing online, there's different formats, right? Imagine if you're writing a Google document or a Word document, there's different formats for words, right? You can have a paragraph format, or you can have a heading format. Now, at this point, like, everybody who's been online knows, like, a heading is bigger than paragraph. But in the code, like behind the scenes, that is translated in the code as like H2, like a heading to tag. And that Google actually looks for those to see, okay, what is important about this post? Because technically, if you're using a heading, that is something that people are looking for. So it's like, okay, use heading to tags as opposed to heading 1, heading 3. It's like heading to tags, we're looking for that. Make sure that your blog post is at least, and I totally forget, I only remember like the number 5,000 or 6,000. It's either 5,000, 6,000 words or 5,000, 6,000 characters. It's like they wanted it to be long, right? Like, this can't be just a 500 word kind of thing. It's like, we want it to be super long. Another thing they told us is that the heading that we're using, like, I mean, the title of the post, if it's like, how to feed your cat really organic food forever, right? That line, that title, has to be replicated like over and
Yes.
over and over and over
Yep.
again to kind of give it more weight,
Hmm.
right? That it wasn't just a passing thought. It was that,
Right.
no, this is what this post is about. And I'm here talking about the bots that are scanning the post. Another thing that they said is you do need to have cross links. You
Yes.
do need to be pointing. If I'm talking about this is great food, I need to have a link to another one of my blog posts that said, oh, by the way, I got into this a lot deeper because I give you a recipe in this other post. So have like cross links back and forth to the post. So I'm just giving you like the just an idea for what SEO work is. It's technical. It's like you got into long tail
Long tail
keywords.
keywords.
Can you tell people a little bit more about this
Oh,
world?
yeah, certainly. So for me, it's almost like a puzzle. So I use WordPress, and there are plugins, hard to describe, but there's one called Yoast. It's
Mm-hmm.
free, which I will say you can actually blog on a budget, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a different topic. So, and Yoast kind of helps you with regards to your keyword. So you figure out your long tail keyword. I have different tools.
Can you describe what a long tail keyword is?
Certainly. Um, Say you want to look up cat food. Cat food is not a long tail keyword. You want organic cat food for elderly cats. That is a long tail keyword.
Because it has like a long,
It has
like
a
it's a
long
long
It's a
sentence.
long sentence. It's very specific. It's a very specific search. So instead of cat food, which you're going to get everybody and their sister for results with regards to cat food, you want to be more competitive and have this long, specific phrase that someone's going to look for. It's a smaller audience, obviously, looking for that. But if you think about it, if you have a cat and you have an elderly cat and you want organic food, you're going to type in organic cat food for elderly cats. And that is where you can compete against the larger bloggers, companies. That's where I find where you can find where you can be competitive is in those long tail keywords.
Yeah.
And there's some great tools out there that kind of can help you give you long lists of keywords that you can kind of get to kind of help you get ideas on what you want to write about. There's a ton of free and paid ones out there that you can use.
Which one was your favorite? And before you answer, I'm going to tell you when I did a little bit of this work. I laugh because like I am so not nice. I didn't get anywhere. I didn't have the patience to keep with it. But there was a Chrome extension called Keywords
Yes.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've used that.
And you install it in Chrome, and what it does, it's magical. It's like when you search for something in Google, like you go to google.com and you search for something, immediately after the search bar, it would tell you what the volume was, like how many people are actually searching for this, what the cost per click would be. Like they actually give you all that information, so you know if this was a good keyword or a bad
Yes.
keyword.
Yes.
Which one was your favorite?
I actually use a low fruits. It's something that was recommended to me by another blogger, Pete McPherson, who I follow. And low fruits is like, it's a very organized keyword extension. It gives you type in what you think you want to what you want to say. It gives you kind of all these different permutations. It gives you what the rankings are on Google. You can go straight to the Google search results and take a look at who's ranking. It'll give you the average word count for those posts. It will give you a competition number, like 1, 2, or 3, 1 being like go for it. It will actually tell you if you are ranking for it. Like, for example, if I have a series on history of old houses and how to research them, and I might already rank for a keyword, which then you're kind of thinking like, do I want to write another post that like would kind of compete with that? It involves it brings in your blog and tells you where you may be already in the rankings. It's very comprehensive. I think it's easy to use, and so that's my current tool of choice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we're talking about this. What would be your next one?
Support. You need support. And I mean more than just kind of your spouse or partner or your family. I mean, I have that, and I love the support, but I think that you need blogging group support. And there's a variety of ways to do that. I mean, I think that being a blogger, it's a very solo journey in some ways. You're home, you're typing away, you're by yourself. But with the support, Facebook groups, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry.
Facebook groups.
Bring it in, Jen.
What you're trying to say is Facebook groups.
So find some people who do what you do. Find the blogging experts, the SEO experts, join their Facebook groups. Kind of just follow what people are saying, follow the trends. People ask questions. Like, for example, right now I'm on some AI groups because I'm trying to learn some AI. I'm kind of curious about it in some ways, but I find it fascinating. So I'm in a couple of Facebook groups for AI. I see what people are doing, the questions that are being asked. And then you start making connections. And then you'll find out that maybe there's like a mastermind where there's kind of this accountability group or a mastermind group. And a lot of those can be free at first. And I was in a couple of those. And that was amazing. That was amazing where, for an 8-week period, you meet with folks who may not be in your niche, which I think is actually even better. And you meet for 1 week on Zoom and you just work and you talk about what your goal is. You talk about your challenges, your struggles. You get some people give you some feedback and then you work together. You actually, put everyone on pause and then you work for like, a half hour and then you get back on for a break. So you're actually working with people. You actually have that human connection. And I have learned so much from, and some of them weren't even bloggers. Some of them were services. Some of them were brick and mortar folks who were trying to build their online presence. And I love their different perspectives. But it was kind of that motivation, one that, you had these people behind you. They were going through the same struggles as you. They could help you if you had questions. I think that has been key for me continuing through this journey, to kind of reach out once in a while. I've had just a few people that I've met through these mastermind groups and these Facebook groups that I can email directly and be like, oh, having a day. And they are there to support me.
Yeah.
I think that has been key to keep that because, as we said, blogging is long term and it's slogging and it's ups and downs. And you need somebody who can understand it, who's been in the trenches, who is in the trenches with you.
Yeah.
That's more important than I expected going into this. Actually, That has been.
Is there a particular group that you want to give a shout out to because it's been awesome?
Ooh, good question. So from a technical standpoint, I really enjoy the Blogging Millionaire, his podcast and his Facebook group, very technical. My personal favorite is Pete McPherson with Do You Even Blog? He has a podcast and he has had some masterminds and he has a great YouTube channel and he's a friend. Like he is a friend now. Like I can email him and chat with him and I will probably email him after this and tell him, this is what I did today. He works hard and he will get answers for you. I've asked him questions and he will work to get those answers. I would say he's an amazing person to follow. And for masterminds, Raina Wilcox. I know Raina. She's actually an American who's actually moved over to France, and she does some great mastermind work. I was in her mastermind, and I really enjoyed that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Raina Wilcox?
I believe so,
Am I
yes.
getting that right?
Yes.
Okay. Because I want to tag all of these people that you're saying. I'm going to tag them below so that everybody can go and follow them.
And specifically for Pinterest, because I love Pinterest, is Carly. She just goes by Carly. Blogging Like You Mean It. Blogging Like You Mean It. That's the Facebook group. That is a great group. I would highly recommend that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I do have one last one, and because you've mentioned it a couple times, and that is Pinterest for traffic. So when I first started this whole digital journey, my first coach was actually a Pinterest expert. And she would show me numbers and show me like, I am getting 3 times as much traffic like from Pinterest than I am from my Facebook ads. And I'm paying for my Facebook ads. So I just wanted to put in here that if you are thinking of starting a blog and you want to get the word out and everything before you go and pay money for ads, check out Pinterest. See what the rules are, because that's another SEO machine right there. Am I getting this right?
Yes. Oh, gosh. Pinterest, like blogging, is long-term. It needs to snowball. So I've had pins that I pinned, for lack of a better word, back in 2019. They are getting amazing traffic now. That's actually kind of what's saving me right now is Pinterest. Don't expect when you pin your image that it is going to go viral. It's very rare. It's, again, a long-term, it is a long-term win. It will snowball. It should snowball if you're doing the right things. And so I actually kind of like that. As we talk about passive income and you talk about, well, it's really not passive. That is very true. But sometimes I look at that pin that I did, 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm like, look at it go, And it's like, to me, I'm like, that is a little passive because I have not touched that in
Right.
5 years.
Right.
So, um,
I live in a world where I pretty much know every single one of my clients, like people who sign up for my stuff. I just know who they all are. But it looks like you live in a world where like the people who are taking advantage of your stuff, you don't know who they are. How do you feel about that? Like,
it's hard. Like, I get once in a while, I get emails from folks saying, specifically, like, thank you so much, which I appreciate. Gosh, the fact that they reach out and email me, like, I feel like I should do that more for people who help me.
yeah,
But it's a little hard to understand your audience when you don't necessarily, when you don't have that kind of social media or you have that Pinterest, somebody randomly has found it. And how one of the challenges of blogging is what's the next step? How can you help that person next? Like where are they in their journey? What can you do to keep helping? And one of them is kind of those backlinks that you talked about when creating a blog is if you are blogging about something specific, but yet you have other posts related to that topic, make sure that you are including that in your blog post. Whether it's links within your text, maybe it's at the end of your blog, you have a section on related posts where you're providing an image and a link to, another post that they might be interested in. I mean, you're trying to keep people on page. You're trying to keep people engaged to the point where they're like, this person is solving some problems for me. Maybe I should subscribe. Maybe I should, actually check that email subscription box.
yeah.
It's something that I struggle with. Like, what do people want from me? And sometimes, like for emailing, sometimes you can flat out ask. I think that there is some success in flat out asking, like, what are you working on? Like, so as part of my email subscriber onboarding, one of my emails is, what are you working on? Like, what's your pain point right now? Like, what's going on in your house that you're, kind of scratching your head about? And I do get emails back. And sometimes I'll say, you know what? I haven't come across that. I don't know. But here's a couple of things that I found. Or it's something that, I have a little bit of experience in, and I'll write back and chat with them and go back and kind of have a back and forth. And I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is we're in New England is the majority of my emails are actually from New Englanders, although I don't think my blog says too much about where I'm located. So maybe it's because there's so many old houses in
It's
New
the old
England.
houses.
But I find that interesting that when we kind of, dig in, they're like, oh, I'm from Cape Cod. I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, like that's not
Like,
far from me.
that's
Like,
right here. You want to meet up for lunch?
yeah,
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for coming and talking to me about all of this, because I talk to people who just want to start a blog all the time. And that is the first thing they think about. They're like, oh, I'm just going to start writing and then, we'll see how it goes. And I'm like, well, that's like showing up for the Boston Marathon and expecting to run 26 miles today. It's like you need to have the right mindset. You need to understand what you're getting yourself into. And if everything that we said today still sounds exciting and still sounds like something you want to do, then give yourself a couple of years of doing it consistently because you actually like doing it, and then you would start to see results. So that's why blogging is just a lot harder than people think, and that's why there are so many blogs that just don't go anywhere, because you just go and you quit after 3 months because you realize you're not going viral. So what would you say to somebody who really wants to do this, but they just don't know where to get started? Like, what would be their next step?
Ooh, good question. I would listen to some podcasts. ProBlogger was really big in 2017, 2018. I would almost listen to a couple of those episodes going way back. It's a guy in Australia who kind of talks about creating content that people are interested in reading. So the human aspect of things, but also the technical aspect of things. Like you said, the headers or in long tail keywords, and see if that is something that you'd be interested in. That you have to understand that you want a human to read through your post. You want to solve a problem. You also want to keep them reading the whole post so that Google says, hey, they're reading this whole post. This is helping people. People are like actually reading through this. But you're also satisfying Google, and that you have those headers with the keywords so that when I call it the Google spider, kind of crawls along your website, that it's almost like you're hitting Google over the head saying, my long tail keyword is cat food for elderly cats. But you're hitting them over the head with that in your headers, but you're not also boring your reader, that you're keeping that engaging.
That's a balance.
Because sometimes I've read some blog posts and it's like, oh, wow, I'm pretty sure I know their keyword and they've said it 100 times.
Right.
And I am bored. No offense to them. But so I think that there's a balance of that. And if that's something that you think that you can do, like you like that puzzle of like, I'm going to write for a human, but I'm also going to challenge the Google spider to find me, to like me, and to rank me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's exciting.
So if people are listening and they're like, oh, I really like this Jen girl and I want to check out her blog, where do they go to check out your blog and sign up for your mailing list?
My website is everydayoldhouse.com.
And I'm going to put it below so everybody can go and follow your journey and see what you're going to do next. So, Jen, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
This
you.
was so good.
This was fun. Thank you.
This was so good. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And make sure to follow and subscribe so that you don't miss another one of these super, super episodes.